We are so excited for the Thomas Schroth series to present to you Pauline St. Denis. Okay? And so before we begin, first and foremost, I would like to start with acknowledging how lucky we are through the generosity of the donors, Cecil Drame and her late husband. In honoring their dear friend, Thomas Schroth, they established an opportunity to bring incredible artists from all disciplines to present to our students, KSU, and the community at large. Since 2001, the Thomas Schroth Visiting Arts Series has presented guest artists in their respected field of theater, dance, visual arts, music, and architecture, including such noted artists as Tony Award-winning composer Stephen Schwartz, actress Alice Ripley, the Grammy-winning Emerson String Quartet, and post-modern minimalist artist Rachel Tuttle, just to name a few. I am thrilled today to bring you photographer Pauline St. Denis, a woman who tells her story behind a lens. And this week, she will work with our students at Kent State University to learn how to capture the essence of a brand. But I also want to acknowledge how this came to be with the Thomas Schroth series, and I want to thank Kent State University, the College of the Arts, our wonderful Dean, Diane Petrella, our Associate Deans, Kim Hahn, Wendy Matthews, and we have wonderful everybody from the faculty, the staff, to the teleproductions to put this event on for this whole week. And a special shout out to who my favorite person of the week is. Where's Bob Christie? Bob Christie, who taught me what the world about photography is. Thank Bob Christie. He's been very instrumental for the delivery of this program. Are you ready? Sure. Rock and roll.
So, I am a photographer, and I studied photography in high school at Interlochen Arts Academy. I went to school and college in Ohio at another university, but many people from Kent actually came to my university, which was Ohio University, to hear lectures that I've done in the past. And I have an unusual approach to photography and also to fashion, because music, fashion, celebrity is all intertwined. And it's so important to be aware of all these markets. I started shooting on a $15 camera, and I did that for almost 30 years. So we're going to take a look at some of my old work and talk about my life and how I lived all over the world, pretty much except Asia, and got to work. So hopefully, I have not done a lot of these PowerPoint presentations, but wish me luck. Here we go. Let's see, where is my guy? Play. Haha. So, Ohio, it's where I was born. I was born in Lakewood, Ohio, outside of Cleveland. And my friend in New York designs this Ohio gear. So I thought I'd say hello, and thank you guys for hearing me. And it's very interesting because many of the people that I meet in New York and in Paris and also in London come from Ohio. Ohio has great education, and it's a great place for the arts. And like lemmings to the sea, people leave Ohio and go to the coast. And I suggest that you all come to the big city once in a while, but now because of globalization and the internet, you don't really have to live in New York or Paris or London, but it's always good to learn. So this is my favorite photographer and major influence in my life was Guy Bourdin, who's a French photographer. And he was very active in the 70s and the 80s in an ancient time when print was king. And now print has changed and devolved, and now it's more multimedia. But Guy said, better to live 5 minutes than an entire life in a conventional way. and I live a very unconventional life, and my motivations are not what other photographers are interested in. So I like the creativity and the group aspect of making pictures. I like teamwork, and I like working with like-minded individuals, and that's what always inspired me. I have made money, and I have not made money. My goal was always the creativity. So this is a day in my life shooting. I am shooting in a studio in New York, and I decided I wanted to put the celebrity on the roof, and I could not stand on the roof at the same time as the celebrity, so my beloved assistant held me by my legs out the window, and I shot, and that's pretty much like any day in my life. I'm a person who loves to shoot, and I don't really carry a lot of equipment or a lot of gear. I work very minimally, and I'll go at great lengths to take a picture. And then, too, I wanted to say, if you want to be creative, you can't be certain. You have to be willing to take risks and push yourself, and not afraid to make mistakes. My whole beginning of my career was based on mistakes and predictable mistakes through the medium of film, which is coming back now, but it is not like it was, but it's the same with anything. You have to be willing to experiment and to remember what you did. Like I always suggest that people keep a diary of what they're doing on shoots or what they're doing in the moment so they can remember how they did it. And this is another hero of mine. This is Mr. Bailey, one of the greatest photographers of all time. And I like this. What's your favorite light source, Mr. Bailey? And he said, I'm happy with available light. And they said, you mean natural light? And he said, no, I mean any expective light that's there. I've used flashlights. I've used little tiny LEDs. I've used the lights we have upstairs, which we rented. All you need for photography is light. That's it. If you don't have light, you can't take a picture. You can use your car headlights, anything. You can use a pen light, you can use a reflector. It's like know how to manipulate light to get what you want. So in college, I studied with great photographers like Guy Bourdon, Helmut Newton, Irving Penn, and I think all these guys are dead. I don't know if Mr. Penn is dead. I think he just recently died. And I was influenced in the 70s, that's when I was growing up in the ancient times, with designers like Vivienne Westwood, Stephen Sprouse, and Zandra Rhodes, who's going to be here today. And she made her big splash in 1977, and that's when I graduated from high school, and punk began. So here you are, like in Ohio, and it was the beginning of punk rock and the Clash, and it was so different from anything that I had experienced, and I was so amazed by what happened. And then I put some resources here. This famous photographers.net. There's great photographers like Helmut Newton and Guy Bourdon, and you can find them on this famous photographers.net. And we can take a look at them later or come back to them. And also this Ian Drummond vintage.com is a great blog for fashion history, photographers, and designers. And we're going to take a look at that in a little bit, but we will return. So after I graduated from college in Ohio, I went to Chicago. And Chicago was the biggest city closest to Cleveland. It wasn't as terrifying as New York. And at that time, the industry, they had a lot of catalogs in Chicago, and they shot a lot of catalogs. So I interned and then got a job at a catalog studio. And it was like graduate school because we shot every day, all day long for 8 hours, and I worked for their top fashion photographer, and we shot on film and 8x10 view cameras, and it was before there was Photoshop, and everything had to be perfect. One of the things that happens today is a lot of kids say, well, you can do it in post. We can fix it in Photoshop. Don't worry about it. It's very important to do it in the moment because time is money and it costs out the wazoo to retouch things. And I'm a shooter. I am not a digital tech, nor do I want to be on the computer all day long. I want to shoot. That's all I wanted to do. I know how to retouch basically, but I prefer shooting. And everybody will find their niche. There are retouchers that I work with who are really great artists. So after I was in Chicago for 2 winters, I decided, why am I here? You think Cleveland or Northern Ohio is cold. There's nothing like that wind coming off of Lake Michigan. It is freezing. And so I said, I'm moving to Paris. Now I had $600, and I bought a plane ticket, and I went to France. And I moved to Paris. I got a little room, almost impossible to rent an apartment in Paris. At that time, it was impossible to get a phone. It was like a nightmare, but I finally, met some people at a modeling agency who helped me out. I worked with an editor for Italian Vogue in Paris, and her name was Brana Wolf, and she's probably one of the most creative stylists I know. I love her, and I love Patty Wilson. And I think Patty Wilson is also working through Italian Vogue right now. So Italian Vogue had a huge presence in Paris. And through Brana, who my roommate was working for her, and she got fired. And I said, oh, does Brana need an assistant? And she goes, yeah, I can't believe she's a psycho. I don't know why, And I said, great. And I walked over to the address because I used to pick up my friend from there, and I rang the bell. And I said, Brana, I'd really like to work for you. I go, I'm the roommate of Chris. And she said, well, can you drive a stick shift? And I said, yes. And it was a complete dog lie. I never drove a stick shift in my life. And I had someone teach me how to drive a stick shift over the weekend. And she had a Fiat, and I have a Fiat now. But through Brana, I got introduced to fashion, but on a level that I had never seen in my life. I got to go to the ateliers and the studios of Thierry Mugler, Azzedine Alaïa, Jean-Paul Gaultier. I got to work with photographers Albert Watson, Peter Lindbergh, and Andre Rao, who is a really wonderful photographer who I think deserves more attention than he got. I got to be on the dressing room floor of Paolo Roversi and hem and press things for him. But most importantly, I got to see these guys work. And even though I was a humble styling assistant, which really meant carrying bags and picking things up and then helping Brana on set, it was one of the best experiences of my life, and I remember it to this day. John Baptiste was a celebrity photographer and a fashion photographer, John Baptiste Mondino, and then I also got to meet Yoji, which I spelled wrong here, and Issey Miyake, and Yoji's wife, who does Comme des Garçons. And these brands were incredible at the time. Now, I'm going to see if this works. Let's click on it and see if it works. So this is I don't know if you guys can see it. This blog is so nice because, oops, it went back. I don't know if we can do it. But it has, let's get rid of that, a history of the designers. And at this time, in the early 80s, fashion was on fire. These designers were insane. And what a lot of people don't know is haute couture is done by hand. They're not sewing with machines. There's women and men who are sitting at tables all of them had immaculate white robes, blue robes, like doctors' offices. And you would go in and you would see these seamstresses and these tailors doing this incredible work. Every button, everything, every bit of embroidery was done by hand. And Brana used to tell me, she'd go, okay, feel this, and you'd feel it. I didn't know that Chanel had chains in the bottom of their jackets and in their hems. So it was always weighted, and it would always look right. I came from Ohio. I shopped at Sears, you know. That's like, I wore Levi's. So it really introduced me to an entire level of the craft and the class and the expertise. These pattern makers were highly, highly skilled, and they're still valued today. It's really important to address them. So this is the 80s designer, Jean Paul Gaultier. It's like a little history course. Beautiful. He did a lot of things that Madonna wore and other celebrities. He just was such an innovator, and the fashion shows were such an experience to witness and to see. And I'd always get to sit next to Brana, like in the front row, and we were the coolest as can be. And then, there he is. I'm trying to think. See, that's an outfit that I'll always remember. I'm trying to see who else they're talking about. But the hair, the makeup, Claude Montana, incredible. And his shows were incredible. And the styling and the tailoring was mind-blowing. And, you know, and I think there's kind of a renaissance that's happening now, that we're seeing some of these influences again today, right in the present time, because these designs are and were so innovative and so futuristic that they're coming back. Everything is cyclical. Fashion is cyclical. It comes, it goes. Hems go up, hems go down. The economy's good, hems go up. The economy's bad, hems go down. And all these influences I'm seeing. I just saw a girl on the street in a leather coat, and I thought, oh my God, that looks like Claude, but it wasn't. It was Balenciaga, so I was very impressed. But the same, almost exactly like the coat that we're showing here. And fashion history and art history is so important to photography, and also important to styling and to your brand, because you want to be able to pull those references. Even for yourself, if you see something you like, take a picture of it. My phone has 40,000 pictures on it. I look at kids. I look at people on the street. I'm in New York. I look at someone's shoes. I see a woman with a dog, and the dog has a special collar on. Or I see something that, I don't know, a glass, a vase, anything, and I try to document it. Let's see if we can scroll this up. Here's a couple other ones. And Terry Mugler, unbelievable. Mind-blowing. And the blondes today remind me a lot of Terry. I think they are very popular. Their shows are incredible. And they took a lot of direction and ideas from Terry Mugler. So this was all going on when I was in Paris, and it was a wonderful time to be there. So I'm going to go back. I want to see now. Matt showed me, and I want to see if I can get there. Oops, I think I went out of it. Those are my pictures, but let me see. Keynote. Next slide. And what happened? Who do you think this superstar is? This is Pauline St. Denis being styled by Brana Wolf for Lay magazine. They needed a chubby model, and I was chubby to them. I wasn't 6 foot tall, but I was an American girl in Paris. I had a 17-page spread in one of the hottest magazines in Italy. And there I am, and this was shot by Pamela Hansen, who's still shooting today. So I just thought it's so cute because I'd watched so many shoots. I knew all the moves. I knew how to make those clothes work. I knew how to run with the umbrella. I was being very French and smoking a cigarette. I never smoked a cigarette in my life. Yannick did my hair. It was an incredible experience. So also be ready, if you are working for somebody, if they ask you to do something that you've never done, do it. I used to have to take the train to Milan from Paris. I made $35 a week. $35 a week. And they would send me to Milan to go pick up shoes at Italian Vogue, and then I'd have to take the train back and drop them off in Paris. So I came to New York after I was in Paris, and I wanted to talk about who my major influences were in New York. At the time that I came back to New York, it was the 80s as well. It was 1984. And New York had gone down really, really low. It was bankrupt in 77. The city was filled with rats, a lot of heroin, a lot of clubs, a lot of music. And I feel kind of sad in one way for the youth today because they don't have the clubs that I got to go to when I was first in New York. And there was nothing like going to a nightclub in New York in the 80s. You would get dressed up, and we dressed and dressed and dressed. And before we would go out, we'd go to Patricia Field's. And I bought my first Anna Sui suit at Patricia Field's, and she's going to be here this week. I bought 2 suits, and I still have them. And you would go into her shop, which many transgender youth worked at, and they were dressed so insane, and the clothes were so beautiful, and many of them were British designers. And I used to just save up all my money from waitressing, and I was a photo assistant in New York, and I didn't make a lot of money photo assisting, but I always waited tables at night so I could have the money to A, go to clubs, and B, support my photo habit. So I just wanted to say that Patricia Fields influenced me so much and all the designers that she worked with. She was great. And also Sex and the City, which was incredible. And Sarah Jessica Parker was incredible, and all the women. It was very much like New York at the time that I was living in it. And I'm still living there now, but now I'm in Brooklyn. So, finally, the 90s come, and I have been assisting for years. It was a time when print was evolving, and it was the end of print. It was the end of an era, and the graphic designers and the people who were manipulating type and print were incredible. I worked for Raygun and Bikini, and Marvin Scott Jarrett was the publisher, and he founded it in 1992. Also, I worked for Cleveland's Alternative Press, which still exists today. And a good way to get into photography or to get into the medium or to get your work published is to work for music magazines. And I just wanted to give like a little homage to David Carson, who was a graphic designer and one of my favorites. And he really created a new visual culture, a culture which shattered limitations of graphic design. Quincy Jones also started Vibe in 1993, which is a premier destination for music. I was on the masthead at Vibe, and it's a crazy story. My photo editor was George Pitts, and they thought I was Haitian because of my name. They thought I was a woman of color and I was Haitian, and they sent me to shoot some of the baddest hip-hop artists in the country, and I'd come and they'd be like, yo, who are you? And I'd be like, I'm the photographer that you picked. And they were like, oh my God, I can't believe it's you. And it was really fun because I was not really into hip-hop. I was more into punk, but then I became very into hip-hop. And it also was a fashion culture and expression. And what was happening at Vibe is they had one of the best photo editors in the world. And George Pitts, unfortunately, he was teaching at Parsons, and he has passed. He died a couple years ago. And he was a wonderful, wonderful editor, and he loved my work, and he helped me so much. And he is a really good photographer, and someday I hope you guys can see what he does. So now I have to transition. I'm going to show you the work that I first did in New York during that Raygun era. I think this is really great because I donated a book to the university called Toying with Creativity. And I was doing stuff with film. And this is my little $15 camera. And I was very into emulsion and what film could do. And I worked for TV, I worked for Adidas, I worked for Bergdorf Goodman, Disney, Fox, the NBA, Nike, the Olympics, PBS, Sony, Discovery, and I mainly shot for Vibe. And I shot for Spin, and I shot for Rolling Stone, and I did it with this little cheap camera. A lot of people say you need photo equipment. You don't, you need a brain. There are many, many photographers who work in Japan and who work in New York who have very minimal equipment. People still use disposable Fuji cameras. I no longer shoot with a Holga because I had a relationship with my lab. And the labs in New York, they ran 24/7. And most of the lab guys were from Ghana, and they were of Indian descent, and they worked in the film industry in India, and then they came to New York and worked in the photo industry. And the relationship you had with the lab and the culture of the lab was so important because they ran your film. And the one thing that I miss the most, I think, about photography today is the culture of the lab. Because if you were an assistant or if you're a famous photographer, you just needed your film, you would go to the lab and you would stand there waiting. Or you would go to the bar next to the lab and wait for your film to be run and then come back in. And it was a wonderful time because you got to meet so many like-minded assistants and also famous photographers. So we're going to click on this. I hope it works. And let's see. Okay, so this is stuff I did for Vibe. And graphic designers loved my work. I'm just going to see if we can make it go. Let's see. Ooh, yes. Okay, here we go. So I did these strips of film in camera, and I would mark with a magic marker the frames that I like. None of this is done in Photoshop. This is all emulsion and pieces of film. Then the graphic designer could choose what part that they wanted to use. And they would use these for CD wraps, they'd use them for banners, they'd use them from all different things. So this is a guy named Cool Breeze, I think he's out of Virginia. This is the Executioners, and they did a wonderful album called Built from Scratch, and they're great guys. And you can see the Twin Towers are still in the background. Capone and Noriega, that's 125th Street, one of the greatest rap hip-hop albums, I think, of all time. Those are my guys. They were very, very fun. We had an incredible experience together. This is Yolitsa, who we used for a cover of an album for Armand Van Helden, a DJ. And she was a girl, and I love using real people. Now, Yolitsa became a model, but this girl was so beautiful. She was Dominican, and I saw her on the street, and she was always with her two cousins. Her parents never let her walk around New York City without one of her brothers or one of her cousins. And people would literally drive into telephone poles and stuff when she would go by. This girl was so gorgeous that it was mind-blowing, and I talked to her, and she let me shoot her for this album. This is another DJ, and I can't remember his name. This cover was a cover that wasn't printed. It was for Sony, and the name of the album, and it was called Rock Sucker. So we had to come up with a theme. What did that mean? And of course, rockers have a lot of groupies. Jeff Beck really loved this cover, but they couldn't sell it at Walmart. So it is used, an artist from Seattle named Natasha Lady Krishna used it for a record cover of hers called Cosmic Panties. These pictures were taken with the plastic camera, which almost melted in the Russian baths in New York. This is another DJ, and I don't remember his name, unfortunately. But these murals were done in Harlem, and I thought the paintings were so beautiful, and he was a dance DJ, so I asked to go up to Harlem and to shoot these in front of these murals, and we credited the artist, who unfortunately I don't remember at this time. But I saw those paintings when I was driving. I stopped, I took a picture, And that's what I do. Where did I see it? So I can remember where I saw it. Because if you shoot all the time, you can't remember these locations. And it's very important to kind of use those locations. Or you see it once, well, where the heck was it? I'm very into piles of salt and dirt. And I love salts. I love salt piles because it can look like the desert. And they use a lot of salt in New York because there's a lot of ice. But now they cover them up. So if you see an uncovered one, it's like a very rare experience. So I always try to keep a little diary now on my phone, but I used to have a little pocket diary. I always take a note. This is a German DJ that was in a hotel room, and I like all these pictures. This was an ad for cool cigarettes. I had an ethical conflict, but I took the money. I was like, oh, do I really want to shoot for a cigarette company? Yeah, I do. I can do it. This is Joan Jett, who is one of my heroes. This is a rare studio shot that I did on a Hasselblad of a singer from, I think it was Skunks and Antsy was the name of the band. This is Cindy Blackman, a female drummer. And this is Khalees, who I love, who's a beautiful person. And she wanted a horse in Manhattan, and we had to get one. And we couldn't get a permit for the horse because it was a very bad day. Many people were bitten by dogs, and like all kinds of crazy stuff was going on. So the park said, look, just keep the horse, low profile. So we shoot in the studio, then we go to meet the horse, and the horse has like 400 people around him. He's rolling in the grass. He's letting kids pet him, and it was anything but a low profile horse. So this is another German band. I can't remember their name. This is a DJ, Jamie Meyerson, on an airfield that I found in New Jersey that private planes landed on. I think it was some travel destination, which you will see I'm using in the future. Okay, I wanted to take a quick look. Maybe we can look at some portraits. I think these may be celebrities. Let's see if it loads up. Oh, yes, it is. Ha-ha. Okay, so this is Adrian Brody, Academy Award winner, who's a lovely man whose mother is Sylvia Platschi. She shot for The Voice. She works on plastic cameras, too. I got to shoot Adrian like 4 times. I shot him in New York, and I also shot him in Cuba. And the first thing he said, gosh, he goes, you're so much like my mom. She's crazy like you, and she has all those plastic cameras. And she's a really, really talented photographer. I used to work for a magazine out of Savannah called Contents, which is no longer in print, and they used to send me all over. This is a director who I believe did Boys Don't Cry or Girls Don't Cry, and that was in Savannah. So if you're a photographer, you get to travel a lot, and that's a lot of fun. And these are pictures I did in Cuba. And I brought a stylist with me who brought designer clothes from New York, and we street cast people. And I still think that's one of my most favorite things to do. I like shooting people who aren't models, but are real people in designer clothing. And at this time, you couldn't get into Cuba, but I got to go to Cuba because I had an artist visa, and I knew one friend who was there, so that we shot all these guys. And it was really fun, and it was published in several magazines. That's I think his name is Ekis. He is a hip-hop artist out of Cuba. This was just a cool lady I saw on the street, and I really enjoyed it. And this is a kid a beautiful little girl I saw. This picture with the big poofer thing on her shoulder, I just recently reposted on Instagram, and it got something like, 2,000 hits or something. And I was very surprised because the picture is very old. And this is a beautiful woman named Eden, who I loved very much. And she reminds me of the model that Hillary introduced me to last night, who is Bob Mackey's muse. And this is in my apartment. And that's Eden again. So I kind of wanted you guys to see. And there's my grandma. And she's great. And this is my friend Sean Young, who was in Blade Runner. And this is a wonderful playwright Kenny Lonergan, who's won many Academy Awards. And this is Satan, whose name is also Rachel Weisz. And she's, at this time, was and may still be married to Darren Aronofsky. She was a monster. A monster! Okay, now, this is some of the fashion that I did at this time. And this is my favorite kind of story. I had a relationship with Dolce & Gabbana from Italy and also in New York. And I said, look, can I please take a bunch of your clothes to New Orleans because I want to do a story in Treme, and I want to do it on the street. And they were like, well, who's the stylist? You know, and it was a wonderful photographer and stylist named Jennifer Czar, whose work is incredible. T-Z-A-R. So we shot this on the street. And I think it was published in Contents magazine. Now, we cast the girls from the street. We bought afros at like Woolworths. And there was no really good makeup artists. A lot of the makeup was too over the top. So we used Vaseline on the lips and on the eyelids and these big afros. And the story has won me so many awards, and it's really one of my favorite fashion stories I ever did. And the thing that I like about it is you can see there's staples from the film, there's flare, there's multiple exposures. There is no ability to adjust the f-stops on these cameras or the shutter. You have to really know the basics of photography to balance the light and to make it work. And we got a brass band. I went to a restaurant, I saw a band playing that had all the horns and all the stuff, and I said, well, can you meet us in Treme? And we're gonna take some pictures. And they were like, yes, and they did, and they brought their instruments. So here they are, and then this was used for the New Orleans Jazz Festival, this photograph. And this is this picture is my masterpiece. This is the greatest picture that I've ever taken in my life. And it's a continuous strip. And do you see the guy in the red bathrobe in the back, in the red satin bathrobe, talking to the girls? So we would just do the strip. They'd walk up and down the street and shoot it. And I love this photograph. I think it should be in the Museum of Modern Art. I think it's incredible. This is a story I did in LA called Sunset Strip. Paul Smith let me borrow some clothes to do that. Erickson Beeman, who's still working today, gave me jewelry and boots and everything. And so we did it in a really cheap hotel room. I have a strong affinity for cheap hotel rooms. It was a little sexy. I don't know if it's art, so we can show some. This was done in New York. And I think one of the things that happens is, as a photographer, you develop relationships with stylists. And stylists develop relationships with designers. And a lot of designers are represented by showrooms, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So it's very important, if someone borrows you clothes, or if you borrow clothes, that you document what you've taken and what it looked like when you take it. And when you bring it back, that it looks the same way. And some people will say, oh, well, I borrowed 3 pairs of shoes, or 2 sweaters, or whatever. You as the designer and you as the photographer know what goes in that bag. 14 pieces go in, 14 pieces go out. 22 pieces of jewelry go in, 22 pieces of jewelry come out. And you have to know, because people do, it's a tragedy. They steal, they steal, they steal, they steal. And you, as the person who's borrowing it or giving it or lending it, are responsible for it. And also, if you are designers, make sure that they sign some kind of receipt so you can hold them accountable. And there's contracts that are available online and so forth. But I've never lost anything. I did have a stylist lose something. And it turned into this is a very famous stylist. It was a very important piece. And the assistant sent it to an address that was a penthouse address but did not put PH, and it went to another person, and she said, well, my assistant didn't write the address down. And that's another thing. Always get a receipt. Always take a picture of the label, because you're going to be FedExing stuff all over the world. Make sure over and over, even if you think it's stupid, that you have a documentation of it that you can refer to. And it's so important to take pictures of receipts. It is so important if it's your own clothes or somebody else's, because you have to hold them accountable. And if you borrow stuff like from showrooms in New York, which represent many designers who come from all over the world, if you lose one of their pieces, they're usually one-offs. They're usually before production. So if it goes missing, it's a terrible, terrible experience. I just wanted to do one thing quick, because I was talking to the incredibly talented, super handsome, wonderful Bob Christie about how important it is for fashion photographers to shoot sports. Why? Because it's very fast. You can learn to shoot. If you can shoot basketball, you can shoot fashion. And they're interdisciplines, but fashion is a lot of movement and a lot of action, and you can practice shooting street ball. And I used to shoot a lot of street basketball, and I got hired by Nike to do all their battleground street ball games in New York City, which was one of the funnest things I ever did in my life. These guys would be in the NBA if they weren't arrested, or if they had the money to go to college or whatever, and they're some of the best ballers like in the world, but they play on the street. And it's very, very serious. And there they are. This is on West 4th Street. So I just kind of wanted to show you. This was for Adidas. That was in the studio. I think that's it. So now we're going to go back to the other keynote. I hope I'm not boring you guys. Okay, let's see. And how do I make that transition? Play button. Okay, so there's Raygun. Incredible magazine. And I really like this. Design is what drives me to pick up any printed matter. And I still really believe in print, and I'm sad that it's going, because we're all on our phones now, but graphic design is still so important, and the relationship between graphic designers, photographers, and fashion designers is paramount. It's really, really important. So the pages you hold in your hands were made by designers who have achieved a certain immortality. When you're really lucky, like I have, and your work can become an adjective, every time I look at these pages, they look more and more like Raygun. And you can see some of my pictures in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm very proud to be part of Raygun family and to have worked for them. And so at this time, people had never seen type like this. They had never seen layouts like this. People weren't even in focus, okay? Like, it didn't matter. And the use of type was so new and so innovative. It was so strong and it was so important. And notice that the name is music and style. It is not only music, it's not the style of music, but it's also the lifestyle of people who listen to a particular music. And I think it's really important. So I just wanted to show some examples of the beautiful use of type and how important it is. And we still see some of this influence today. And then Vibe was my wonderful, wonderful magazine that I was so proud to work for. And these are a bunch of covers. And it was also the music and fashion and the rise of hip hop. So to actually be part of that as a Caucasian girl from Bay Village was an incredible experience for me. Okay, so then we are coming into, let's see, 9/11. And I call 9/11 the death of print. And it was like the economy collapses. It was Obama. It was a rise of cell phones and digital medium. I was actually in London shooting for The Guardian when the towers were hit. And I walked in to go meet the liaison for my assignment, which was shooting film directors in London who were up and coming, like Guy Ritchie and a bunch of other people. And they said, "Oh, you're American." I said, "Yes, I am." And they said, "We're not shooting today. We're not shooting today. Go across the street, go to the pub, go to the bar. Something terrible has happened." And I was like, "What?" And they go, "No, we can't do anything. Everything stopped." So I ran across the street and I went to the pub, and I live in New York, and I lived in Manhattan at the time, and I saw the towers hit, and I was just sobbing at the bar because where were my cats? Where were my friends? I knew people who worked in the towers. And it was really catastrophic. And that picture of Khalees on that white horse, that sculpture was in the Battery, and it was completely covered with debris from the towers falling. So it was a very strange and crazy time. And it took me 11 days to get home. And I'd like to say a special shout out to the Hamptons Inn, who put up all the Americans for free for 14 days. And to be stuck in London at like $450 a night, it was a wonderful experience. They were very kind. And always remember that Britain is our ally. They helped us so much and helped Americans try to get home. So I want to show you some of my work that led to this image, and we're going to go to my other website. Everything was kind of weird. Print magazines started closing. Film was really expensive. I had to buy a digital camera, and I started learning digital, and I started shooting digitally. So I'm going to show a couple celebrities and some new fashion stories that I've done, and then I'd like to talk about the introduction of AI and how it's changed my life and how it'll probably change yours. So this is my website, and it's now, and I feel I kind of, I edited a lot before I came, and I think I need another editor to help me whittle this down. We're not going to look at everything, but we're going to look at a few things, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. Okay, so let's see how we can do this. So this is Sharon Stone, who I shot for a magazine called Splash, and she was lovely. She's a Midwestern girl. She's still gorgeous, and I enjoyed working with her very much, and she's just wonderful. And I think that's a Ted Mueling necklace, and he had just been developing his line and everything that was going on, and he gave us a bunch of stuff. This is Bon Jovi, who I met at an airport. Now, why I included John Bon Jovi is he is not my favorite. I am not from that kind of music, but he's a multi-billion-dollar brand, okay? He is so rich and so famous that it was kind of scary shooting him. I was like really uptight. But I met him at the airport, and he's just a guy from New Jersey, and he let me shoot him, and I had a wonderful experience with him and his wife, who's always standing 4 feet away from him because he's a very, very handsome man. And as from what I'm hearing, a naughty one. Okay, and this is a wonderful artist who I met, and I like this shot too, and she's just so cool, and her name is Carol, and I can't remember her last name, but it's probably underneath, and I love black and white, and I still think it's very classic. So you can shoot famous people and you can shoot your friends, and it's a good way to develop certain things. There's Kenny, you saw him before. There's Adrian, there's the evil one. Satan, there's Eden. This is a kid that I met at Trader Joe's in New York City. His name's Ito. I love him, and I had a friend who designed kilts So I borrowed a few kilts, and we put Ito in it, and we did some great portraits, and we submitted him to a magazine. There's Ito and his friend, and 2 more kilts. There's our Cuba pictures, which we saw. So I reuse and, use new pictures. This is a cashier at Trader Joe's, a great talent pool. She's a beautiful comedian, and I really like this picture of her. And I borrowed the dress from a designer, Shop Momo Soho, who does this really beautiful tie-dyed, unusual fabric stuff. This is Big Pussy from The Sopranos, and I got to shoot him at Rayo's, which is a very famous restaurant in New York City, and I got to shoot him for the cigar company. Another kid from Trader Joe's. Wonderful people. It's kind of, photography has made me less shy. If you could believe it, I'm actually a little shy. That's Brian, he's a graphic designer. This is a driver for Lyft, who is a transgender individual. And I love this company, Monosuit. I started shooting their stuff, and they always lend me things, and it's very futuristic kind of fashion stuff. And the thing about Nicole is an amputee as well, and there may be another picture of her. She's missing a leg. This is the guy who is the captain of the Capitals, hockey. I shot a lot of hockey. It's very fast as well. Andrei Kovechkin, or something like that. This is a mentally ill person that I met that I thought was absolutely beautiful. I did her picture. There's Sean and her beautiful dog. Sean is absolutely beautiful, and if you saw Blade Runner, she's the android that lives. And Matt is a hatter. He's a local young hip-hop guy, young singer, and another young singer. So I try to shoot anybody who's interesting to me. Let's see, how do I go back to the top? I want to go to another thing. I may need your help again. Get into another section. Let's see, work. Maybe that. Do you know how let's see. So this next story, I'm going to show you 2 more if you're not too bored. Let's see what we got. Okay, we're going to show you 4 stories, okay. As soon as it loads. So it was the anniversary of the film 2001, who was directed by Stanley Kubrick, a genius. And 2001 is very interesting because a lot of things which Stanley show in the movie, the computer, who his name is Hal, is watching Dave, and Dave wants to get rid of the AI intelligence, and Hal is not having it. And Hal can lip read. Hal hears everything and sees everything that's going on, just like what people are afraid about with AI today. And poor old Dave is really in trouble. But Stanley worked for years on the film, and Pauline wanted to do kind of an homage to him. So I thought, how can I do something that is kind of a salute or an homage to Stanley Kubrick? And I'm not Stanley Kubrick, who's a genius and a genius still photographer as well. So I said, I'm going to use these big bubbles, because the bubbles reminded me of the reflection that is in the astronaut's visor when he's in the ship and when he's also in space. So we got these big bubble wands, and we created these giant bubbles in the studio, and we also had to be sure that the bubbles didn't pop on the designer clothing that we were using, because we didn't know what the bubble stains would do. But I love these images because they're so simple, and I think they are very futuristic, and I think Stanley would have liked them. and my assistant learned how to make these bubbles, and it took a lot of experimentation, but we finally did it. And this is Monosuit. It's a Russian brand that I know. They're represented by Flying Soho in New York. But I just think it's so cool. I think this is a very cool story. And I was very proud of myself for doing that. And I think it's beautiful. I like that, because that's like the space helmet. So I'm going to go back again, if I can. Let's see. And this is the last thing I did, I think a month ago. And I love this model. Now, this model is not a high fashion model, but she's fantastic. I like her because of her tattoos. I like her look. I've shot her several times. She's magnificent, and I use her a lot, and so do a lot of other people. Her name is Shay, but she's under Peyote Model. And this is a stylist that I love who also does music as well, which heavily influences me, and his name is Sequin. So I'm just kind of scrolling so you guys can see. This is natural light and little tiny LEDs. And I met the designer who designed the bra, who does a lot of fetish clothing. And in the 80s, Helmut Newton shot a lot of fetish clothing. And I thought her designs were more than fetish, and I thought that they could actually be integrated into high fashion. And I was trying to expand her market, and her company is called Lovelorn Lingerie. So there's Shay doing her thing. And these are great shoes by a friend of mine, John Ashford, who we're going to talk about in our other lecture. And that's Lovelorn's lingerie. And one thing in American magazines, for the most part, you really can't show breasts very often, and also the internet. So that's one thing to keep in mind if you want your stuff to be on Instagram or on Facebook. No titties, you have to cover them up. But Shay's an expert at it because it's too shocking. But I'm very pleased with myself about this story. Let's see if I can get it to go. Oops, I lost it. I wanted to show you the last. I love this designer because she reminds me of Rhode Arte, and I also love the shoe designer whose name is John Ashford, and I'm going to be talking about him in one of the lectures that we're doing and how he's brought his brand onto another level by using very creative photographers and having an outreach in social media. Oops, there is a breast here that I did publish in a Swedish magazine. And this is like my favorite kind of fashion. For me personally, I like something that can be used for music and for high fashion, and I like combining it. And I really like sequins because I think we both have an understanding of what my personal taste is and my style. And it took me a few times to kind of get into this particular genre. And I think that's just I think she's beautiful. I love it. And there's one other thing that I wanted to show you and talk about. This guy, well, here, we'll look at this. This is an interesting images. This is a combination of what's happening, and we're going to go into it in the other. This is a great retoucher. I shot all these stormy skies separately, and the retoucher brought these in. And this was shot during COVID, and nobody was shooting. The whole city was shut down. It was very difficult to shoot inside. The industry was kind of on hold. So I thought, well, there's Floyd Bennett Field, and Floyd Bennett Field is an airfield that you are not allowed to shoot on. But since there was nobody there, and there was no police, and there was no guards, the whole airfield, which costs $3,000 a day to shoot on, was empty. So I thought, what the hell? Let's let's do it. Let's go. So I got a van and I got some people and a wonderful stylist, and we went and we shot on Floyd Bennett Field. And this is called Destination Unknown, and it's been printed in 2 different magazines. And I kind of like this story because it's also a little chic and it's a little rock and roll. As you see, nobody's there. Nobody is there. There's normally cars and police and all kinds of stuff. But I love airfields. So we did that. And I love those red stripes. Bare-feet boots, beautiful clothes, nice girl. I love this picture, cheap star filter. Little prop that's very inexpensive. Hot pink, one of my favorite colors. So I want to go back and I want to talk about the picture that I was showing you in the PowerPoint presentation. This is a guy that is a choreographer who's a designer. And the guy who makes these clothes is incredible. And he is being a choreographer, he uses a lot of dancers, and all the boys are incredible. All the men that he shoots are over the top gorgeous. This is Benjamin. And what's interesting, we're going to see as we go along, this has all been, this is a particular retoucher that did these for me and enhanced the skies and also the skin tones on the body. And I love Derek because his whole thing is he wants to do like adventurous clothing for men and not kind of gender fluid, and he's really nuts, and it's going so well because we've really developed this brand. And when this guy came out, we were on the beach and we walked by. It's outside of D.C. It was in Maryland, and this woman goes, she goes, Miss, can you come over here? I go over, and she's an older woman. She's on the beach towel, and she goes, am I dead? And I go, what? She goes, I don't know if I'm having heat stroke or if I'm dead. She goes, is he real? And I said, yes. And she goes, can I just say hi to him? And he came over and shook her hand. And she was like, I can die now. His name's Time. He's in the military. He plays the cello. He's a wonderful man. And he uses jewelry. He uses makeup. He's really like pushing the limits of, let's say, male fashion, and I think he's doing a great job, and I love him to bits. I just love what he does. I love how he styles. I like the models that he picks. I just think it's beautiful. This was actually not shot at night. It was shot during a day using a wonderful technique called day for night, and they use it in film sometimes. But Derek's, I want to see if I can get this to go up. Maybe I have to, let's see if it'll, nope, we'll go this way. Another one, I got a thing, it was really, really hot on the day that I was shooting, and I posted this picture, and I said, oh God, I was so sick. And then a guy wrote, those abs make me sick. So I try to have a lot of fun, and I'm definitely open. Oh, here's Time again, looking incredible. Making old ladies weep. So I wanted to talk about the introduction of AI. And Derek is one of the people who uses it a lot. And I did not. But I trust Derek, and he trusts me. So we have started to integrate it into his images. And there's a few of them now. So the background was not what it is. He devoided it, and he enhanced the glasses. and this is why I like Derek. Like, he's not afraid to take chances or use unusual props or hairstyling or whatever. He's a wonderful guy. And this was what's coming up now are 3 images that are the beginning of AI for me. So we did shoot this on the beach, but we shot it on a very gray, horrible day. And so the retoucher enhanced this background and created a new background. And that's how I think of AI at the present time. This background was not here. It did not happen. It was freezing, it was gray, and they made this for me. I think of AI, I think it's a brave new world, and I think it's fun to use it, and I think it's kind of like the beginning of Photoshop. I think that it's a tool. I think some people get crazy with it, and then it turns more like an illustration, but I think contemporary photographers can use it and not be afraid of it, but I think tread lightly with a soft paw. Like, you know, it can get really like, oh, very quickly, and not everybody is an expert, and that doesn't mean that you can't play with it and begin to learn, but I've really enjoyed it. And this is one image that's all AI. We were shooting on a rooftop. It was snowing. It was terrible. I was kneeling in the snow. I always like to be on my back or on the ground very low because it usually makes people look taller and thinner. And Derek told the retoucher what he wanted, and the retoucher created it in AI. And I think I liked it. I was like, that's pretty darn cool. Like, it's incredible. It was on a really crappy rooftop standing on a cardboard covered platform, an air conditioning duct. And we came up with this. And I love this picture. I think it's great. And I was very, very happy what Derek had decided to do. And that brings me to where we are now. And if any of you guys have any questions or want to talk to me about anything, I hope you enjoyed it.
Pauline has a gift that she'd like to give to KSU School of Fashion, College of the Arts. And we're going to present it to Dr. Murad Krifa. I can't carry it because of my hand. And so this is going to be, you can stand with her. Thank you.
I love this print because it's also kind of really modernly put together.
Pauline, can you describe basically, because what's interesting is the way that you sent it, first of all, and that you had it printed, because it's not typical printing on paper.
No, it's from a place called Duggal Visual Solutions. And I had gone to the Photo Museum in New York. Well, if you ever get a chance to come to New York, go visit it. It's called Fotografiska. And I saw a beautiful exhibit, and the woman that was showing had her prints like this. So it is a photo print. And they mount it on some kind of fiberboard or foam board. It's hard, so it's something hard. And then they put plexi over it. And I think that makes the image look really modern. And I wanted it to look, like I said, like futuristic. But, you know, I think, it's been, this is so scary, it's been 50 years since Stanley Kubrick did 2001. And what he envisioned and what he saw is exactly what's happening now. So I feel it's a timeless image, but I think it's a fashion image, and I love Stanley. You know, you should look at all his work.
Before we start the Q&A, what we're going to do is I want to take again to thank the College of the Arts, the Thomas Schroth series, for being able to deliver such a wonderful program. We have our Dean. Hi, Dean. And our Associate Dean, Han. Hi, thank you again. After Q&A, 10 minutes of Q&A, there is a lovely reception. And so enjoy your day, and this is KSU Fashion Week. Thank you. Okay, ready? Any questions?
Hi, yes.
It's kind of 2 in 1. That Sharon Stone photo, was that Basic Instinct era Sharon Stone? Because she looked really young.
That was at the Terminator, when she was doing Terminator.
Oh, wow.
But I
And-
also think it's like a really classic picture, so I've always liked it because she is beautiful, and I just loved it. I think it was indicative of a particular time.
And Black girl grew up in the 90s, vibe was the Bible. So did you shoot any covers, or was it just the spreads on the inside?
I did not shoot any covers for Vibe, although I wish I did, but I shoot the spreads.
They were awesome.
Thank you. And I love Vibe. I wish it was still existed today. It was like a religion. It was one of the
Same.
most wonderful places to go.
Questions? Where are you, my dear? Where? Dr. Copeland. Hello, Dr. Copeland.
So we have a lot of students here who are facing their futures and deciding what they're going to be. Do you have any advice for them coming from Ohio, moving into the fashion industry? What advice would you give them today to be successful in this industry and to remain true to themselves?
Well, I think that, you should dream big, write it down. But listen, I have done so many crap jobs at night to do what I do. I waited tables literally for 44 years. I was directing TV commercials during the day, and I was waiting tables at night. And my approach, though, I wanted to be a freelancer. I did not work for a corporation. I was an independent contractor at many organizations. So right now, New York is insanely, insanely expensive. And so was Chicago, when I moved to Chicago. It's nice to have a group of friends that you can share an apartment with, or that you can, work with. A lot of people, at this instant in time, New York is very expensive, and it's very different. I think that maybe I would suggest don't be afraid to be an assistant or try to get a job in a commercial studio or work for a brand that you like. But, even as an intern, and those jobs are hard to get too, but if you don't do it, find something that you can do in the evening so you have your days free so you can meet people and visit people and interview with people. Some people are blessed with, tremendous giving, wonderful parents. My parents, when I was young, were not wealthy. My parents were divorced since I was a year old. My father was a painter, and he actually got his master's here at Kent. And he was dean of the School of Painting at Cleveland Institute of Art. And my mom was starting her own business. And they did not have a lot of money when I graduated from college. They were both 36 years old, and they were really in the beginning of their own careers. So one thing I see that happened, because I do photograph a lot of kids at Trader Joe's, which I love, and the shifts are long and it's a nice company, is that they get sidetracked. To be a freelancer or to be a creative person, you have to be really disciplined. You have to, in your life, be consistent. And that's, I remember my old boss told me, consistency is the key to repetition, repetition's the key to consistency. And fashion and photography are repetitious processes. You're not going to have the support of colleagues unless you live with a group of people, or maybe take continuing ed or work at a commercial studio or work in an environment where you're with like-minded individuals. So you're going to have the discipline to stay true to your goals. And for a lot of people, it's really hard. I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on photography to do what I do. And I got that money from waiting a lot of tables. I'm not kidding, and it's hard to be a waiter and then to wake up and to try to do a fashion shoot and to be friends, but try to befriend people in your industry. and it's I think it's just really important to never forget your long-term goals, and it's really important to write them down. Maybe even a vision board or something.
Any questions? I know that you have students here that are going to be in your workshops for the next 2 days.
Yeah,
So that's going to be incredible.
it'll be really fun.
I was just wondering, you had a picture of Joan Jett that you had shot up there.
I love Joan.
Me too. I was just wondering, what was it like working with her? Because she's one of my biggest inspirations.
She is so cool. And there's another girl from the Runaways whose name is Victoria, and I have to look on my phone to remember who she is, but she's an incredible photographer. Joan is gorgeous. And she is so fun and so amazing. She's just a powerhouse, and is still as vital today as she was, in the 70s. She's incredible. And she looks incredible. Beautiful woman, very talented.
Thank you.
Okay, on to the reception. If you have any questions, Pauline's going to be upstairs. Enjoy the reception. And
Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming. I hope you liked it.